Yahoo Sports Fantasy Football Live is presented by iShares.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Week 5 edition of Fantasy Football Live. I'm Liz Loza, and I'm here with my favorite Sunday morning crew, Andy Behrens, Matt Harmon, Tank Williams, and betting analyst Minty Betts. Guys, we have a lot of live football on right now across the pond. The Falcons and the Jets are in the third quarter. It's a lot of football because there's a lot of stuff going on, most of it not that great. Good news, though, is that Ty Johnson scored. Everyone had that on their Week 5 bingo card. Better news, Kyle Pitts finally found the end zone with his first career touchdown score. 9-20, Falcons are leading this one, though, well, they're giving it away quickly. All right, let's check in with everyone and get some first half takeaways or really anything else on your mind. Andy, why don't you kick us off?
I believe that I am the only person actually starting Ty Johnson in any league anywhere. I'm starting him in Charles Robinson's 20-team league, and like the rest of the day just feels like icing on the cake. That's amazing.
All right, Matt, did you start anybody in this matchup, or how are you faring?
Well, I mean, what I really enjoyed is I've enjoyed watching Zach Wilson's accuracy not translate from one time zone to the other. I mean, well, I guess I don't even know if it was debatable whether it was here in America anyways, but man, at one point I'm sitting here watching the game as we're, getting the show fired up. I'm 90%, I'm still only 5% sure that what I saw was Zach Wilson literally hit a lineman in the back of the head on a screen pass. For you beginners at home, that's not what you're supposed to do on that play. That's not how it's supposed to go.
Tank, I'm sure, I can't wait, in fact, to hear what thoughts are rumbling through your mind while watching some of that game.
I mean, I feel like even though I have no action in this game, I feel like every week we're trying to give Mike Davis the reverse jinx by hyping up Cordarrelle Patterson. But Cordarrelle Patterson, continues to out-touch him, continues the ball, and, Mike Davis just continues to look like that cat that we say is on a weekly basis. And so until things change, Cordarrelle Patterson is the new Julio.
Shrug emoji. Well, we all know that the London games can often go a little bit sideways. So I just want to step away from this matchup because really we've spent too much time on it, frankly, and talk about things that went a little bit sideways for another club. Oh, could I be talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars? They've had a week, and I want to see how this team, this very young team, responds to all of the chaos and the drama. The Jets, believe it or not, got the best of the Titans last week, so maybe there's another rookie quarterback who can earn his first win against Tennessee today. We still have a lot of lineup decisions to make, a lot of things going on, moving pieces. So send your roster questions on Twitter using the AskFFL hashtag or drop a question in the chat, and we will try to answer as many as we can on the show. Plus, our own Scott Pianowski is answering questions all morning long live on Twitter. Now, I said there are a lot of moving pieces. A lot of those have to do with injuries. So let's turn our attention to the actives and inactives for the rest of Week 5. I'm going to start in San Francisco because George Kittle will not be in the lineup for the 49ers today. The team placed him on injured reserve yesterday, so he's going to be out for at least 3 weeks. Broncos quarterback Teddy Bridgewater has cleared the concussion protocol, and he will make a start today in Pittsburgh. Cortland Sutton also listed as questionable and will also be in the lineup. Joe Mixon didn't practice this week, but is active for Cincinnati today. Ian Rappaport reporting he's not 100%, but will suit up against the Packers. And Vikings running back Dalvin Cook is listed as inactive this morning. It was a game time decision heading into things, but it looks like he won't be out there after all against the Lions. Oh, one other quick note in the early games, Dolphins receiver Devontae Parker was such a value in daily. Will not be active today. He's dealing with that hamstring injury. All right, that's the latest. Now let's get into our first over-under on Jalen Hurts. Matt, why don't you set us up for this one?
Yeah, this one's pretty exciting. We're going on Jalen Hurts here. We're going to set the line at 239.5 passing yards, and I'm going to go over. I mean, Jalen Hurts has been a set-it-and-forget-it quarterback in fantasy football right now. We know it's because of the rushing, but also the Eagles have actually just decided, we thought maybe they'd be this creative run-based offense with Hurts' mobility, sort of like what the Ravens had done with Lamar in years past. No, they're 6th in neutral situation passing rate. This entire thing goes through Jalen Hurts. So even if the Panthers defense has been frisky to start this year, I think Jalen Hurts can get there on volume, even through the air, not just on the ground. Andy, what say you?
Oh, I'm definitely going over on this one. You hit the key points. Philadelphia's just sort of given up on running the football. That's great to see if you're invested in Jalen Hurts at all. He has 35 or more pass attempts in 3 of 4 games so far this season. He's hit this total 3 times this season. He's looked really good. Obviously, the rushing stats give him a huge fantasy bonus there, but I think he goes comfortably over this, even though Zach Wilson, weirdly, the only quarterback to actually achieve this against Carolina so far this season.
That is very weird, especially if you're watching the game live right now. That doesn't seem to connect in your brain. Liz, I saw you doing a lot of nodding there. I am going to guess that you are on the right side of history here with Andy and us as well.
Yeah, let's bring out the broom. It is a sweep on this one. I mean, not to mention the fact that Hurts has cleared this number in 3 of his last 4 games. And also, you guys mentioned, you don't need to, as someone who has rostered Miles Sanders someplace, you don't need to tell me how infrequently the Eagles are running the ball. So, in fact, I believe they have the 7th fewest rush attempts on the season. Meanwhile, the Panthers, according to rush-specific defensive DVOA, pretty good against the rush. They're ranked number 8, and we know that they've been struggling without J.C. Horn in the secondary, so I think the points in this one are going to be via the air. I will take the over.
Awesome. We love Jalen Hurts this week. All right, more over-unders coming up later in the show. I think we're sending it over to Tank for his weekly showboat early in the show.
Yeah, holla. It's time for your Week 5 Primetime Ballers. Now, the first game up is that Sunday night match where you have the 3-1 Bills going into the 2-2 Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. And just to tell you where my mind's coming from with this one right now, like, the Bills have a lot of wiggle room in the AFC least, while the Chiefs are in the bottom of the barrel. So this is a must-win for them. So that's why I'm leaning Chiefs heavy here. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, $15 and you're dealing with a $135 budget. Now, dudes are ready to cut this cat out of their roster after the first 2 weeks, but the last 2 weeks, over 100 yards and receiving touchdowns in each game. We know teams try to take away Kelsey and Tyreek in the red zone, so he's a cheap way to diversify your lineup, and I like the way he's been trending the past couple weeks. Now, for the Bills, I'm going with Josh Allen. This is a must-win game for the Chiefs, so I expect the Chiefs to win this game, which means that Josh Allen is going to have to get in his bag in order for them to stay close, and I think he can against this Chiefs defense. So at $41, I know that's pricey, but hey, the dude has justified it over the first quarter of this season. And my superstar, $37. How do you have Patrick Mahomes at $37? Like, I don't understand how he's that cheap. Like, I understand the Bills have been balling, but they have faced like Washington, Miami. I mean, like some teams that haven't really been that good on offense, Houston. So when I look at it from that standpoint, like, yeah, the Bills defense is tough, but when Patrick Mahomes is in a must-win situation, he turns into the third splash button. I think we see that tonight on Sunday Night Football, and he balls out as a superstar in that game. Now on the Monday Night Football, Indianapolis Colts going into Baltimore Ravens. And like, the Colts won against Miami last week. The Ravens may have been looking past Detroit last week. Not going to happen this week. I feel like the Ravens smashing this one, and that's why I'm going with Marquis Brown. Like, the only thing I have to say about this one, like, you remember what Tyler Lockett did against the Colts in week 1? Like, Marquis, besides him turning into stone hands against the Detroit Lions, like, he's been damn near bulletproof. So I expect him to have a big game, and he's only $21 in this one, and you're dealing with a $115 budget. Now for the Colts, I'm going with my man Nyheim Hines. It seems like my man Reich is playing red light, green light with these dudes, and this week looks like it's going to be a green light since he wasn't really used in that game plan last week. I feel like the game script is going to favor him with the Ravens basically smashing the Colts, and so with Carson Wentz not being able to throw the ball accurately in the intermediate pass or deep pass, I feel like Hines is heavily involved in this one, and he's only $17. And my superstar, you already know who it is. It's my man Lamar Jackson, unleashing the invisible juice. Now against the Chiefs, he used his legs to win, and then he aired it out against the Broncos last week. I think he hits the coast with that two-piece special, and so that's what I'm looking forward to seeing Lamar do on Monday Night Football. So make sure you get these locked into your lineup, because it's going to take a lot to stop Lamar, because he's been hot this week. Well, hot this year, actually. Blazing hot. I just had to get that in for Harmon. Now let's go ahead and slide that over to the sports book, so so we can see what's popping in the sports book with my girl Minty.
Welcome to the Sportsbook, everyone. Time for some trends today. Let's head to the NFC North. The Vikings are 6-1 against the spread, their last 7 games against the Lions. Next up, The Bengals are 7-4 against the spread as underdogs of 3 or more points. By the way, the Packers are the most bet team over at BetMGM this week with 85% of bets on the Packers today. And lastly, in the NFC East, the Giants are 2-5 against the spread as underdogs their last 7 games against the Cowboys. I will be back in a bit with my best bets for week 5.
All right, I think we're going to go to some play calling here and answer some questions from those of you using the hashtag AskFFL. How about this first one? It's a question about some running backs. Which of these two, Damien Harris versus Houston or Damien Williams versus Las Vegas? Andy, let's start with you. I always like to start with you.
Oh, I've got these guys so close in the clash of Damien's. I think Williams is a strong play this week, and I think he can probably give you about 85% of what you might have expected from David Montgomery. But I really think this is a huge bounce back week from Damien Harris. I know he's been relatively quiet in 2 of the most difficult matchups that you can have over the last couple weeks, but I think this spot against Houston is where he blows up, gets back to 100 yards, finds the end zone. They've basically run out of options in that backfield. Game flow should definitely suit Harris in this one, so that's the direction I'd go.
I agree with you, actually. I had Harris slightly ahead for exactly the same reasons. Also, he's coming off of a career number of pass routes from last week's game, even if the target showed up for Bolden in the box score. So I think Harris is in for a blow-up spot as well. Let's go to the second question. It's from James. Half-point PPR flex question. Tank, I'm going to come to you. Kenny Golladay, Chuba Hubbard, or Hunter Renfrow, who has, scored in back-to-back weeks here?
Oh, man. If I have to choose between those and a half-point PPR, I'm actually going Golladay. I like what I saw out of him against the Saints. I like the matchup against Dallas. I feel like, the Giants are really going to have to sling the ball around to try to keep up with Dak and that high-powered offense, whether it's Ezekiel scoring, the Dak throwing around to all those weapons on the Cowboys offense. And so with Golladay being the target monster that he was last week and not getting in the end zone, I feel like Daniel Jones may target him. And I really like Daniel Jones this week 2, which you'll probably hear a little bit later. So give me Golladay.
Oh, I know we're going to hear about you and Daniel Jones a little bit later, Tank. But for this next question, it's from 2, and he needs 2 of these running backs in PPR. He wants to know if he should start James Conner, Josh Jacobs, or Joe Mixon. I'm actually going to take this one. Yes, James Conner is not necessarily the pass-catching back in Arizona, but Chase Edmonds is dealing with a shoulder injury, which means extra protection if he hasn't already been protected from the goal line. Josh Jacobs, you would think, tough matchup against Chicago, but Akeem Hicks not active for the Bears. Joe Mixon, as I talked about in actives and inactives at the top of the show, dealing with an ankle injury, so give me Conner and Jacobs in this one. I love that we're getting to so many questions. Matt, I'm going to come to you with this next one. It's from Puron, I believe. Well, sure, let's say his name that way. Damien Williams, another Damien Williams question. Emmanuel Sanders at Kansas City should be a lot of points, right? Or Antonio Brown versus Miami. Matt, which of these players are you starting?
Like all 3 of these options this week, I really like the entire Bucs passing offense to get going against the Miami Dolphins. I think that's the way I'd lean, even though I do like Damien Williams. I like his usage potentially here, replacing David Montgomery. I just think the ceiling prospects for Antonio Brown are really high in this game. So especially if you need kind of that extra boost from this spot in your lineup, but presumably a flex since we're talking about running backs and wide receivers, yeah, I would go with Antonio Brown because saw all the end zone targets that we liked last week. We know he's the kind of the deep threat of this offense right now. So again, big bounce back here for the Bucs against the Dolphins. I would go with Antonio Brown in this spot.
Very sound logic. Remember, everyone, keep those questions coming using the hashtag AskFFL. Time for our first break here on Fantasy Football Live now, though. When we come back, we'll take a look at whose stock is trending up, and Justin Herbert joins the show in Eckler's Edge.
B, I want the real B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon. The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani unleashed. Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect.
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. It's time now for Fantasy Stock Watch presented by iShares. Let's take a look at the biggest risers and fallers across the league and see who's trending up right now. Matt Harmon, talk to us about Curtis Samuel.
Well, if you're going to twist my arm, yeah, I'd love to talk about Curtis Samuel. No, he gets his debut last week, and obviously, you know, they got him the ball a little bit. Nothing huge there or anything like that, but I love the fact that he took 7 snaps outside, took 8 snaps in the slot, so they're moving him around a little bit. I really like that for his potential usage down the road. And look, they're going to need him because the pride of Lynchburg, Virginia, Logan Thomas, is out for a few weeks here. He's on IR. They're going to need a second pass catcher to step up beyond Terry McLaurin. I think it is Curtis Samuel who they paid that money to. And, I mean, he gets a Saints defense this week that let John Ross get behind them for like a 52-yard touchdown. Let old Kadarius Toney get off the line of scrimmage a couple times. That guy can't even barely run any routes. So, yeah, I think Curtis Samuel could actually have a pretty big week. I don't know if I've got, like, the fortitude to start him this week, but I do think he is trending up in a guy that you are going to want to have on your roster. Only 33% rostered in Yahoo leagues right now. I definitely think that is going to rise after this week and going forward.
I want to talk about Allen Robinson for a second. Matt, I just want to ask you, is Allen Robinson verifiably good at football? Is that still a thing? He is, right?
Sources are saying yes.
Exactly. So I want to read the names of some players that Allen Robinson has been dealt for in one-for-one trades in Yahoo leagues recently. Melvin Gordon, Tyler Higbee, Jacoby Myers, Emmanuel Sanders. This is what we're trading Allen Robinson for. His fantasy stock has obviously plummeted. Look, this is a great player. This is somebody who's delivered 1,200 receiving yards with Mitch Trubisky, with Nick Foles, 1,400 yards with Blake Bortles. He is in the dead prime of his career, and now he gets Justin Fields, and maybe you're worried about that. Maybe you're worried about pass volume, but I'll tell you, Fields looked fantastic last week, and the best thing about his arrival on the scene as the Bears starter is that he's actually looking downfield. Andy Dalton's intended air yards per target were like 4.2. Fields is at the top of the league at 9.4. This is going to mean huge things for Allen Robinson. It is going to mean huge things for Darnell Mooney. I think his stock is only trending up at this point. Matt, give us somebody whose stock is maybe dipping.
Yeah, we talked about Jalen Hurts in the over-under section to start the show. I mentioned that the Eagles are 6th in neutral passing rate, and you said great if you're invested in Jalen Hurts. Not so much if you got Miles Sanders, but look, I actually don't think there's really any reason to expect the Eagles to suddenly flip this usage or anything like that, because from a success rate standpoint, their offense has been pretty good. And, you know, look, the worst part about this for Miles Sanders is not just the fact that he's not rushing the ball, it's that Kenneth Gainwell, his routes run have gone up each of the last 3 games, culminating in 21 last week. I think if you want to make an analogy to actually Nick Sirianni's former team, he's kind of becoming their Naheem Hines is Kenneth Gainwell. So that leaves Miles Sanders as the Jonathan Taylor on an offense that's not really running the ball, kind of hit or miss from an offensive line perspective, usually isn't going to be favored in a lot of games. That's pretty much like the worst thing that you could ask for from a fantasy football perspective. So yeah, I would say the guy is trending down.
Yeah, it's a great call. I want to bring up James Conner here, who we mentioned earlier. Pretty good play this week. I've got no real debate with that. But James Conner so far on the season is entirely touchdown dependent, and that really concerns me. He has 3 catches this year. He's averaging 3.2 yards per carry, which is just simply not great. Chase Edmonds is the back that they are throwing to. Chase has been active as a receiver, probably going to finish this year with something like 70, 75 catches on the year, and Conner just not involved in that way at all. We are trying to build a fantasy portfolio here that is tailored to your needs, and at some point you're going to need yards, you're going to need receptions. These are things that matter in fantasy. I don't trust guys who are just entirely touchdown dependent, so if I can throw James Conner on the trade block and try to get something, I am definitely doing that right now. Remember, get your share of progress with iShares. Visit iShares.com to find out more.
Thanks, guys. Each week, fantasy football enthusiast Austin Eckler checks in to talk all things football in Eckler's Edge. And this week, the Chargers running back and I played Believe or Make Believe for some fantasy flex options. And we chatted with his real-life quarterback, Justin Herbert. Take a look. I'll give you a surprising fantasy stud through 4 weeks of the season, and you tell me if you believe his production will continue or if the early success has been make-believe.
All right, let's do it.
Let's start with the Falcons' Cordero Patterson. He is a running back. He's a wide receiver. I don't really know which he is, but we don't care in fantasy because he has that dual eligibility.
Right.
We do know that he has a total of 354 yards and 5 touchdowns, 3 of which came last Sunday against Washington. So are you believing in Patterson, or is this all make-believe?
Hey, I'll say this. Those are some real numbers right there. Like, those are no joke numbers. That's scoring some points. Always kind of been that gadget guy where he's used in jet sweeps. He's used in some running back spots where he's running some routes out of the backfield. And so just from the past, I feel like how he's been used, I'm going to say it's make-believe until he can put a consistent season together, which, like I said, props to him if he can, but right now I'm going to say make-believe.
I agree. I just don't think that this is sustainable over the long haul of the season. I mean, once Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts and Matt Ryan start to get into a little better of a rhythm with Arthur Smith, then you'll see less of these gadget plays schemed up for Cordero Patterson, and some of that production will start to trail off.
I'd agree.
Now let's move to a veteran wide receiver. It's AJ Green. He leads the undefeated Cardinals with 248 yards and 2 touchdowns. Austin, do you believe in AJ Green, or is this make-believe?
Hey, the Cardinals right now, they got a good thing going. I feel like Kyler's going to get the ball to a lot of people. Just how mobile he is, the way he's able to make plays with his feet, keep plays alive. So I think this is real. I'm believing in AJ Green. And he's on one of my fantasy teams, so I might be a little biased.
Yo, but I understand this, and I completely agree with you. I think everybody saw AJ Green struggling through injuries in Cincinnati. They all said he was washed, but he has recorded 6 targets in every single game. So that kind of consistent volume on that offense, and I am 100% believing. We're now joined by the reigning Offensive Rookie of the Year and Austin's quarterback, Justin Herbert. Thanks for being here, Justin.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you coming through after the big one.
Of course, Ag. Anything for you.
That's my guy. The backfield buddies. You see that? The backfield relationship right there.
I like seeing Austin blush a little bit. This is fun. All right. You face the 3-1 Browns at SoFi. Cleveland gives up the second fewest yards per game in the league, and they're tied for the most sacks in the league with 14. How do you slow down the Browns pass rush? Myles Garrett's been a beast.
We're going to have a good protection plan going into the week. And again, I have to count on the backs to step up and do some pass protection. So, I've believed in those guys, and they've done a great job so far. So it's just going to be on us this week.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of the Washington week. We were worried about the same thing, and we came in with a plan to stop the rush. Stop the rush, and then, we get the ball out of Justin's hands, and then get the playmakers making plays.
Justin, can you tell us a fantasy football story, maybe someone who came up to you and either threw shade, but more likely said thanks for being such a baller?
Yeah, actually a funny story. My dad drafted me last year in his fantasy football league. you know, I really wasn't expected to play at all last year, and so it was kind of a really late draft pick. And then I ended up playing, and he ended up starting me, and I think he actually got second in his league. So he went pretty far, but just to be a part of his team was pretty cool, and to hear him and how excited he was about the whole thing, it was awesome.
That is awesome. Hey, shout out to your dad, man, for having faith in his boy, man. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. That's some family right there. That's some love.
All right, it's time for some flex questions from social media. Tank, you and me, baby. Let's get into it.
Man, relationship goals. I'm just trying. I want us to be like Herbert and Eckler, man. Anything for you, Lizzie.
Thank you. There you go. I mean, the bromance was real. I blushed a couple of times in that interview for them. But let's get to these questions. The first one is from the photographist. I love it. T. Higgins, Adam Thielen, Jacoby Myers, Laviska Shenault. He needs 2 half-point PPR. I mean, I love T. Higgins in this spot against Green Bay. Good a number of points available in this matchup. We know what Adam Thielen can do in the red zone, despite last week him not scoring, but like the 4 touchdowns for the 3 weeks before was a lot of evidence. Myers and Shenault, also good plays with decent matchups. Should be some good volume there, at least for Shenault. But I gotta say, Tank, I'm feeling Higgins and Thielen because of the touchdown upside.
I can tell by the way you changed that inflection in your voice that you already knew what it was. Like, I'm sipping the same Kool-Aid as you. Like, that Green Bay Cincinnati game is going to be a sneaky shootout if it isn't an outright shootout and everybody can see it coming. And Thielen, like, I mean, he's had a couple quiet weeks, but we know that he can come up with multiples in any given moment, and I think it's going to actually come this week. So I'm definitely feeling Thielen and Higgins.
All right, well, let's let you go first this time. I don't want to steal any thunder. Hot Stove Steve says Brandon Cooks versus New England, Marvin Jones Jr. versus Tennessee. I know we're both high on him. Latavius Murray versus Indianapolis, or Dawson Knox at Kansas City. He needs 2 of these guys. Who are you picking?
Oh, man. All right, so I really like Marvin Jones against the Titans. I mean, that's the best matchup on paper that any wide receiver can have. I mean, I understand that the Jaguars may be coming in motivated because, you know, Urban is rightfully catching that fire down his neck. But at the same time, like, I feel like the Titans going to come out ready to win this game. King Henry going to probably ball out, and so I think that, you know, my man Trevor Lawrence is going to have to throw it around a lot to try to keep up. So I like Marvin in this one. I know that I said that Brandon Cooks is like bulletproof, but I feel like the Ravens are going to smash this week. I already said that. Like, I think I probably got to go Latavius Murray going against that Colts defense.
Wow. So I think I'm definitely we're together on Marvin Jones. Brandon Cooks, I agree with you, but I also feel like, what does Bill Belichick do? He removes the other team's number 1. I don't know after Brandon Cooks what Houston has offensively. But I just think that Monday night game is going to be so boring. I was going to lean towards Dawson Knox and chase some touchdowns in a game with like 56.5 points available. But Marvin Jones for sure, and then, you know, y'all can decide if you want to go Murray or Knox for either of the reasons Tank and I outlined. Last question is from Dexter. Ooh, another Brandon Cooks question. Lots of questions after last week. Brandon Cooks, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, A.J. Brown, Curtis Samuel needs to pick 2. Tank, who are you leaning towards? I'm going to guess T. Higgins and A.J. Brown, but tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm definitely fooling with T. Higgy. I mean, I like that Green Bay Packers versus Cincinnati this week. I mean, hopefully that game doesn't disappoint because, like, I got a lot of action in that one. And then, like, if my man A.J. Brown is starting and he's going against the Jags, they got a bunch of Jags on defense besides, like, a couple cats. And that's a must-win game for the Titans after getting smacked by the Jets when they're supposed to be the playoff team, like the league contending AFC South. Like, you got to come out and ball out this game against the Jags. And it seems like they always smack the Jags around, too. So give me that AJ flow.
All right, we're on the same page there. All right, y'all keep sending in those questions. We'll get to more flex picks later in the show.
All right, it's time for our first fantasy face-off of the show. I'm going against Andy here in the running back situation. So, Andy, you like Josh Jacobs this week. Please tell us why.
Yeah, I feel like I'm alone on Josh Jacobs' island, basically. I like this guy. When healthy, this is an elusive runner. He came out this season, scored a couple of touchdowns in the opener, bounced back from injury last week, plenty of workload, actually caught 5 balls. That was great to see. It's a matchup this week with the Chicago Bears defense, and they've been mid-pack against the run all year. No Akeem Hicks in this one. That's going to be good in terms of Jacobs' upside in this one. I think he finds the end zone at least once here, possibly twice. I think he's a strong play. I think he's definitely a top 15, 16 RB this week.
Yeah, I was going to start off my rebuttal with the whole fact that Josh Jacobs, when healthy, is like 10% of the time. But I am also picking a guy who was a game time decision, super questionable coming into it. So I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. But the fact that Chase Edmonds is expected to play, I am excited about him this week because I'm kind of going against the grain here. Obviously, the Cardinals are 4-0. They're heavy favorites coming out into this game. But I actually think that the Cardinals could be trailing in this spot, and we know that that's good game script for Chase Edmonds, who has 4+ catches in every single game. As you mentioned earlier in the James Conner analysis, Chase Edmonds is the passing down back here. That is clear-cut, no question about it. And I think the fact that Trey Lance, who we haven't mentioned yet so far the show, I think, he's going to come out and run all over this Cardinals defense. They're really struggling from a run-fit perspective. So I think that we actually will see the Cardinals playing in a game script that's more favorable to Chase Edmonds, even if a lot of the signals, in terms of the line, the spread, whatever going into it, do not look that way. So 2 pretty close options here. Not sure that anyone's like, oh man, I'm really feeling Josh Jacobs or Chase Edmonds after Andy and Matt really talked him up here. But you make your decisions based on what you think is best for your lineup. All right, it's time for another break here in Fantasy Football Live. We'll be back, and we're going to talk about, what's going on in that London game. Just total great barn burner we sent there across the pond in this one. And we're going to get you some player props for Week 5.
B, I want the real B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon. Best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani Unleashed. Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect!
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
All right, and I believe we are back. We have an update on you're supposed to have an update on the Jets-Falcons game in London. Jets are pulling closer to the Falcons in the fourth quarter, 5 points out. And we still have 13 other games on tap today. Let's look at some of the players trending. Oh, actually, the Jets just got the 2-point conversion. So there's a lot going on with this matchup, and they're finally making it exciting as they expand into all of Europe, London, Germany. What's next? I don't know. Anyway, maybe you shouldn't send the Jets and the Falcons over. Regardless, let's talk about some trending players. We've got Mike Gesicki trending, Chase Edmonds trending, Damien Williams trending. Mike Gesicki is the first one I want to talk about. I love his value, frankly, in our daily game. So, Tank, I'm going to let you talk about why that might be. Go ahead.
Well, I think, with Mike Gesicki, he's going against Tampa Bay, and they're actually pretty friendly against tight ends. And the one thing I like about him is that Jacoby Brissett has actually been targeting him the past couple games. It seemed like Tua was in the lineup. This dude was non-existent. Like, we already know that Devontae Parker's not going to be in there. Jalen Waddle should be your deep threat, even though they use him as a possession receiver. But Mike Gesicki is a guy that you know they're not going to use him in the run game. They're going to have to use him in the pass game. And I expect Tampa Bay to smash in this one, so he should be getting out a lot on routes. So with him being fairly cheap and daily and going to have a high usage rate, I think he could be a really good play for someone in the lineup.
All right, Andy, which of these two players would you like to talk about? Should we talk about Damien Williams a little bit more with Monty shelved?
Yeah, I think Damien Williams is a pretty clear start this week, right? Like, I'm surprised people are even wondering. The workload is going to be there. He did come out of last week a little bit dinged, had a thigh bruise, but they quickly dismissed that in practice this week. It seems like he's going to be a full go. And he's going to step into exactly David Montgomery's role, right? Like, so there's a really good opportunity here. I don't think Vegas is going to run away from the Bears in this one. So we're looking at perhaps 20 touches for Williams here. I mean, he's a guy who we're just a couple of years removed from him leading people to fantasy titles not that long ago. Obviously, very different offensive context here. He's not in Kansas City anymore, but the workload is just so secure. He's such a gifted receiver. It's going to be a really strong play this week.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned he led fantasy managers to titles. He also helped to lead with 2 touchdowns in that matchup against San Francisco, the Chiefs, to a Super Bowl title. So I like him a lot, certainly inside the top 20. Let's now get to the sports book. Find out what Minty and Matt are liking and check in on some player props, guys.
Yeah, let's dive right into some player props. Love this segment every single week. Minty, get us started off with your first one here. The folks at home will be surprised. You might be not taking the over on this one.
Oh my God, it is a surprise. I'm going with a wide receiver named Odell Beckham Jr. I'm going under 55.5 receiving yards. Simply put, the Browns are a run-heavy team, and the Chargers are allowing the 4th most rushing yards per game. OBJ only recorded 27 receiving yards last week against a much weaker defense in Minnesota. So I say OBJ underperforms and does not get to this number.
Yeah, that Chargers defense does not allow explosive plays, so I really like that call from you there. I don't see if Baker Mayfield can even hit the guy when he's wide open downfield, I don't know that we're going to see any of those passes. I don't know that we're going to see Odell get behind the defense like he did last week. I'm not tilting about it, though. I'm totally fine. I've moved on from that wide open miss by Baker Mayfield there to end that game. I think that the industry at large needs to move on from some of these low expectations for Saquon Barkley. I mean, the rush attempts number this week is 12.5, and I am absolutely taking the over on this one. I mean, why is this so low? Why is Saquon Barkley just $23 in our daily fantasy game? I don't understand it. Like, Saquon is back. Like, he's averaging over 86% of the snaps. He's averaging 86% of the snaps the last 3 weeks. He's cleared this rush attempt number in the last 3 games. Like, there's no more limitations on the player. I think you can obviously quibble with the matchup. Like, Dallas's defense has been flying around and is good. And of course, there's always still a little bit of question with that Giants offense, even though they have looked good the last few games. Overall, though, like, from an opportunity standpoint, I see Saquon Barkley pretty clearly going over in this matchup.
Okay, all right. My next player prop is going to my guy Joey B, but I'm going under his passing yards, of course, surprise. 266.5 passing yards. I'm pretty iffy about how Burrow will produce against this Green Bay defense. They're allowing the 8th least passing yards per game, so I think the Bengals will have to rely on the ground game more if they want to move those chains. So yeah, under Joe Burrow passing yards.
Yeah, I actually kind of think that's an interesting line there. That's a bit closer than I would expect the spread in this game. Like, I think taking the Packers is a pretty good call in this one. All right, my last one is A.J. Brown, over 63.5 receiving yards at -115. I mean, look, A.J. Brown is back. We're getting him with no Julio Jones, who is not going to play in this game. We're getting A.J. Brown against the Jaguars, so check on that one. And whatever your preseason expectations were for A.J. Brown, mine were very high. I think everybody's were really high. I think we can juice him right back up. Like, people have this bad taste in their mouth with A.J. Brown because we saw him drop a few passes in week 2. Don't care. Like, remove that from your mind. A.J. Brown, if he's healthy, and he is going to play in this game against the Jaguars, yeah, give me a break. This Jaguars defense is 32nd in pass defense DVOA. So I think A.J. Brown is your 2nd round pick in fantasy. You're taking him on this line here. Like, I absolutely love A.J. Brown this week. It's going to be a fun game to watch, see if this Titans offense can finally look a little bit better now that A.J. Brown is going to be back in the lineup. Minty, you will not be back for Yahoo Sportsbook Live today, but I will be there. Jared Quay will be there. It's going to be great, so make sure you tune in. 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific. Send your questions into @Yahoo Sportsbook and @Yahoo Fantasy. We will be giving everything you need to know about the games that are live at that point, but also taking a little look ahead at the Sunday night and Monday night player props, the lines and spreads for the later games. It's going to be great, so make sure you tune in right here on Yahoo Sports.
All right, over under number 2, and we are looking at the Sunday night game, and it's going to be a good one between Buffalo and Kansas City. We're going to talk about Zach Moss. I'll get us started here. We're going to set the line for his fantasy points at 14.9. Look, Zach Moss has 30 touches in his last 2 games. He's got 4 touchdowns in 3 weeks. Feels like forever ago that he was actually inactive in the opener. He's now a huge part of what they do at the goal line. Inside the 10-yard line, he already has 9 carries. That's more than Josh Allen. So Josh Allen, not exclusively the goal line back for the Bills anymore. You look at this Kansas City defense, and it's terrible. They are last in the league in terms of yards per play allowed, almost 7 yards per play. They're last by like a mile, giving up almost 5.5 yards per carry. I think this is a really good spot for Moss. I think he sees another 15 or so touches. I think he goes over this number. Matt Harmon, what say you?
Yeah, no, I mean, you bring up a lot of great points about Zach Moss's recent usage, but I wonder if that is kind of a false flag here because, look, the last 2 games, they've shut out 2 teams. I mean, which is unbelievable. You can't really be getting shut out in 2021. It's too easy to play offense. But they shut out the Dolphins. They shut out the Texans. Right now, the Bills' defense and their point differential are just so much higher. They're so much better in those marks than everybody else because of those last 2 games. So I wonder if those game scripts have kind of influenced Zach Moss's usage. I really would ideally like to just take the over on anyone against that terrible Chiefs defense. But because of the possible game script here, I'm going to go under on this line for Zach Moss.
All right, fair points. Tank, break the tie.
I like my man Harmon preaching to the Reverend on a Sunday because I'm going with the under 2. Because like I said earlier, like I understand like the Bills are a good team, but who have they beat up on? Like the Steelers, Washington, the Dolphins, the Texans. Like I understand that defense is good, but they haven't faced Mahomes yet, and so I expect this game script to get away from the Zach Moss narrative. Like this dude has a 3-game touchdown streak. Like three games in a row, Zach Moss has scored a touchdown. Like, would you actually bet your hard-earned money that he'll score a touchdown 4 games in a row? I doubt that. So don't get mossed. Go with the under.
I am a longtime Zach Moss believer, and I'm not going to veer away now that he's actually playing well. But I'll take the loss here. That's fine. Liz, give us some sleepers for Week 5.
Oh, it's so funny you asked, Andy. I do actually have a couple of sleepers to consider, and I want to start with a rookie. You know, so much of a first-year player's fantasy success happens because obviously their landing spot matters. Case in point, Kadarius Toney. I immediately fell for Toney's like Debo-light energy and had him ranked in my top 5 heading into last April's draft, but then he landed with the Giants, right? And Sterling Shepard, we know, is fire in the slot, so Toney's upside was obviously capped. But then last week with Sterling sidelined, we got to see some of that shiftiness from Toney. He converted 6 of 9 for 78 yards. I think he gets peppered again today while Daniel Jones tries to keep pace with Dak. Plus, the Cowboys have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers, so feel the flex here. Much to everyone's surprise, except for my girl Minty, let's be honest, the Bucs did not flex too hard in Week 4. Some of that obviously had to do with Gronk's absence. In his stead, though, Cameron Brate logged his highest snap total and ran the most routes not only of the 2021 season, but of the entire Tom Brady era. He's obviously not a one-for-one replacement, but we know that Brate, who is in his 8th year as a Buc, can be effective in the passing game and particularly in the red area of the field. I think he does some damage versus a Dolphins defense that gave up 2 touchdowns to Mo Alley Cox last Sunday. Oh, and one last nug. All right, you guys know that I like to stay ahead of the curve, right? So keep an eye on Ricky Seals-Jones in Washington. Matt mentioned Logan Thomas is dealing with a hamstring injury. Seals-Jones who is a converted wide receiver, by the way, and who Taylor Heineke has been talking up all week, is the next man up. Now, I don't like his matchup against the Saints this week, but next week he gets the Chiefs, and that is juicy. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. I want to bring this conversation back to the here and now and check in the chat with Matt.
Well, yeah, we're gonna check in on the chat. We gotta update though the game. We've got to update the game, and we definitely have to update Tank Williams on the fact that Mike Davis just scored a touchdown. Your guy Mike Davis has just made his way into the end zone. Tough scene there. There was a flag, but it was on the defense. So yeah, I think that is. I mean, that was just beautiful timing. Like, thank you, universe. I'm here with Tank Williams, and Mike Davis just pops in a touchdown. And it only took 14 carries. It didn't even take 50 carries, like I said that one week. What are we even doing here, Tank? Well, actually, what we're doing is we're gonna help the people. So if you're in the chat room, especially on YouTube, I've got that one pulled up right now. Hit me with some good questions. Hit us with some good emojis so that I can recognize your question from the crowd here. First one up, because they do have some really great emojis in this question. Water to Wine wants us to answer this one. Marquis Brown, Michael Pittman, or Jacoby Myers in the flex. Tank, what say you here? Because I like all three of these receivers this week, and I'm just I'm going to let you try to guide this person here.
So I like all three. I think it's more of a Damien Harris game in Houston versus them trying to let my man Mac Jones throw it around. I mean, I like Michael Pittman, the athlete, but man, Carson Wentz hadn't been able to hit a broadside of a barn the way he's been throwing the rock. Like, he had Pittman open in the red zone so many times against the Dolphins and whiffed on every last one of them. Marquis Brown, besides that one stone hands game in Detroit, has been lights out, and I really like that matchup against the Colts. So I'm going with that man Hollywood.
Yeah, no, I think I like Michael Pittman going in a matchup where the Ravens have allowed some explosive plays on the outside. But again, I don't think you can really go wrong with any of these three receivers. I will also be talking about Hollywood Brown later on in one of our over-under segments. Let's hit another one here from Thomas. Wants to know half-point PPR start two from this group. Again, Marquis Brown, Alexander Madison, Chris Godwin, and just say Allen. I'm going to go ahead and assume you mean Keenan Allen here. Tank, I like, again, these are all four quality options as well, but I think Keenan Allen is a definite in a game against a Browns defense that is going to rush the passer well, as Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler were talking about early on in the show. I mean, what a name drop we can do right there. I think Keenan Allen's going to be heavily targeted in this spot, getting the ball out quick out of Justin Herbert's hand. And I mean, I don't really know how you could bench Alexander Madison going against the Lions with Dalvin Cook inactive. What say you?
Yeah, I'm right with you. I mean, Alexander Madison is a no-brainer to me. I mean, he has the best matchup for a running back in this week's slate, so you're definitely playing him. And when it comes to Keenan Allen, like, this dude is going to get a guaranteed 11, 12 targets per game. I mean, that's a given. The only thing that he's been missing is getting a touchdown or multiple touchdowns. And, you know, everyone's been on Big Mike, my cousin, because he's been balling out. But it's only a matter of time before my man Keenan pops off, and it could be this week against the Brownies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this is really, the volume has been there for Keenan Allen. We just haven't seen necessarily the explosive plays, but I think that could easily come this week. All right, we got to step aside here and take another break on Fantasy Football Live. For all you Mike Davis enthusiasts, you're welcome for that big celebration by Tank and I heading into this segment. But when we get back, we do have a final over-under on Hollywood Brown. As we talked about, you want to catch that, we will be right back.
B, I want the real, B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon. The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani Unleashed. Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail. Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free, live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
All right, let's dive into our final over-under. As mentioned, it is on Marquis Brown, and I'm definitely taking the over on the 99.5 receiving yards that we have set here. Look, the Ravens are 18th right now in neutral situation passing rate. That might not sound like much, but that is a huge jump from the 30th they were at in 2020 and the 32nd that they were at in 2019. They are actually letting Lamar, throw the ball, and he's responding really well. He's thrown it deep at the highest rate among guys who've started all year, highest air yards per attempt. A lot of that is going to Marquis Brown. He only needs a couple of big plays to hit this mark, and he's been hitting those big plays for the most part. The Colts defense is whatever, middle of the road, doesn't move the needle much for me one way or another. So I'm definitely taking the over on Marquis Brown in this one. Minty, how about you?
I get your points, but 100 receiving yards is a lot to reach if you've got a quarterback who likes to run the ball himself most of the time. I know the Colts so far have a questionable defense, but they're going to surprise people Monday and give Baltimore a hard time. I'm going under.
All right, that is a spicy take that the Colts defense will give the Ravens some trouble. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I don't think it's going to be like a clean sweep here, but Liz, which way are you coming down, over or under on Marquis Brown here?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see this happen because I've been enjoying the evolution of Lamar in terms of being a passer, and his connection with Marquis Brown is everything I frankly hoped it would have been last year. But in a game where the Ravens are already 6.5-point favorites, and they are, respectively speaking to the rest of the NFL, a low-volume passing offense, I have to imagine that Bart Brown is not going to hit this number. So I am going to take the under, because I just don't think that there are enough points available for that to happen.
Yeah, standing alone with optimism on Marquis Brown in a primetime game does not feel totally comfortable, but I guess that's what I'm dealing with here. All right, let's send it over to Andy in Fantasy Court for some very, very serious legal advice.
If it's anything, it's extremely serious here. And this week we're talking about a league punishment, and I love it. This is one of the most extreme punishments I've heard about. Have a series of tweets that came to me from Pablo. I want to read a few of these. A member of our league, Pablo writes, got last place but refuses to set a date on his punishment. Could you help us show him that he is legally required to follow through? And then we get some details from Pablo. He has to wear a banana suit, wash the car of every league member, and then run a beer mile. It was one of the punishments on the Wheel of Death you have to spin at the end of year party. We call this one the banana suit gauntlet. And then I heard from another league member who reminded Pablo that apparently the loser also has to perform Hollaback Girl in the banana suit at karaoke night. Wow. Admittedly, this punishment it's a lot. There's a lot on the books here. But hey, what an opportunity to say that you've actually completed the banana suit gauntlet. There can't be very many people who've done this thing. Some people do triathlons, but very few can say that they did a full BSG. This thing is amazing. What I need you to understand here, whoever this loser is that when you spun that punishment wheel, you took a blood oath. This is an obligation just as sacred as paying your league fee or setting lineups or replying to trade offers or doing any of the things that we expect you to do in a fantasy league. You have no choice, sir. We need to get this thing on the calendar. My advice would be to just set up a car wash station at your home. Oh, how disgusting does it seem to be in a wet banana suit for an entire afternoon. But just set up a little car wash station at your home. Tell the league to come by between, I don't know, noon and 4, something like that. Set a window. Do it on Halloween. If you do it on Halloween, then your neighbors won't even question the banana suit. That won't even seem weird. Honestly, I don't even consider the beer mile to be punishment. I've done this thing before. It's really fun. Do you like beer? You probably do. Can you handle moderate exercise? If you can, this thing is actually pretty fun. And I will also say that Hollaback Girl is a perfect karaoke song because you'll get the whole room to sing along, so there's no pressure here. And doing it in a banana suit is just absolutely perfect. I love everything about this punishment. It is extreme. I am ordering you to get it on the books before the end of this month. And please, I wouldn't mind if you sent us a little video. We might just play it here on this show. Let's get this thing done.
That would be B-A-N-A-N-A-S. I love it. What it do, baby? It's your boy T Money with your week 5 ballers on the budget. Now, we starting off with my man Daniel Jones, DJ Danny Dimes, going into Dallas at $25. Now, Dallas gives up the 6th most fantasy points to quarterbacks, and Daniel Jones is $25, but you'll think that he's a bum rocking the Eli face on the weekly because the dude has 3 20-point outings in this young season, but they have him priced at one of the, cheapest prices in the league. Like, I don't understand it. I like the potential game flow with this one with either Dallas throwing it around with Dak or Zeke, my man Pollard, running this. So I think Daniel Jones is just too damn cheap to be priced at 25 in a really good matchup against the Cowboys. Now at running back, I'm going with that dude, Chuba Hubbard, at $18 going against Philadelphia. Like, my man Sam Darnold and those Panthers, they got a little smacked up in Dallas, and I think they are one of the better teams in the NFC. So this is going to be a bounce back game for them at home, playing against a tough Philadelphia team, but I feel like that's a team that they can get over on. Like, Philadelphia gives up the 7th most fantasy points to running backs. He soaked up all the volume after Christian McCaffrey left, and so I feel like the game script will likely favor him in this matchup. And also, like, the dude has 2 B's back-to-back in his first name and his last name. Like, that may be my new Ricky Bobby 2 first names thing, but he has to bring it together this week versus the Eagles. Now, at wide receiver, I'm going to that sneaky shootout that I talked about, Green Bay, Cincinnati, with my man Jamar Chase. Like, the dude has been balling out all season long, yet he's still super cheap. Like, I understand the matchup on paper may not look that good. I think the Packers give up the 23rd most fantasy points to wide receivers, but no Jair Alexander in this one. I feel like Joe Burrow and the Bengals with something to prove. After trying to overlook the Jaguars a little bit, are going to get busy versus that Packers secondary and sling it around to all those cats. T. Higgins back. They got Tyler Boyd. Uzama kind of balled out for him at tight end. So I feel like Jamar Chase and all those weapons are going to kind of bring it together this week. And at tight end, I'm going with Zach Ertz in that Philadelphia against Carolina game. Like, the dude is only $11. Like, I understand the matchup isn't that great, but he's averaged 7.5 targets per game. And I feel like with Jalen Hurts still being a young quarterback, we've seen that Devontae Smith is this dude. At the same time, he's going to continue to lean on those tight ends. And it seems like over the past couple of weeks, Zach Ertz has been his more pass-catching friendly tight end than even Dallas Goedert, who started off the season hot. So those are my plays. Make sure you remember that the T is for the money, and the money is something that you will not have in your lineup if you don't get these players in your roster. Now, Producer Dan, go ahead and show the standings. Now, my man Reverend eked by Lizzie last week, barely, but Queen Lizzie is still in front. And one thing that I do not like at all is that the Reverend is now above me. This man Harmon with the best hair in the business is like right behind me, and I know he will want nothing more than to kind of put me down in the caboose. Minty is still rocking the under for us, but we know, like, every year she just comes with a banging lineup that throws up damn near 200 points and gets her right back in the mix. So things, hey, it's only week 5, but things are already getting freaky. So can't wait to see where we're going to be next week.
All right, you can still get in on the action in Daily Fantasy this morning on Yahoo. Our big $1 million baller contest is open, and you can win cash prizes. There's $150K in guaranteed overlay, and first place takes home $100,000 plus an entry into the first ever Yahoo Fantasy Football Championship Live Finals. Visit the Daily Fantasy Football lobby and join in on the fun.
I am very excited to welcome to the show today Lawrence Jackson. He is one of my favorite people on social media. He's a contributor for NBC Sports Edge, and he has his own podcast called the Lord Don't Lose podcast. Lawrence, welcome to Fantasy Football Live.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure to be on. I'm glad you reached out, and you already knew I was going to say yes.
Well, I love authenticity. I think that authenticity is not just great for content, but also really helpful for analysis. And you deliver top-notch versions of both. So coming off of a game in which he passed for 316 yards, Lamar Jackson is still one of the most divisive quarterbacks in the league. Lawrence, what's your prediction for him on Monday Night Football versus the Colts?
Well, I feel like, his last Monday night performance was spectacular against the Chiefs, pulled out the W there. That was a really gut-wrenching win. So now it's not as big of a game for him, but it's still prime time. And now that we've seen Lamar and the Ravens passing game get going, teams are daring them to throw, and he's definitely throwing. I think he's going to go off. I think you're going to see a combination of that passing game and that razzle-dazzle when he get into the running game. And we might just see him get rookie Rashad Bateman for the first time. So that's going to add a little more to it.
So let's talk about another divisive player. This one in Atlanta. Now, I know you're from Atlanta. I know that you were high on Kyle Pitts. I'm out here every week saying this is going to be the week. What are you thinking for Pitts long term?
He's got the physical tools, obviously, still growing into that man body, still growing the rapport with Matt Ryan. They're trying to get him the ball. He's repeatedly having targets in the end zone every week, so they just got to convert. The tight end position in fantasy is volatile. The difference in these tight end rankings right now is touchdowns. You see Dawson Knox he's a top 5 tight end right now because he has 4 touchdowns. So Pitts just got to start getting those touchdowns, and it's going to be all good, baby.
So where are you ranking Pitts rest of season? Tight end what?
Tight end 5.
Yeah, that was the number in my brain too. All right, so we're still on the same page. Let's talk about another quarterback, another electrically mobile quarterback. It's Trey Lance time in San Francisco, and it's Trey Lance time in this segment. What's your expectation for his first career start at Arizona?
You can't expect it to be perfect. Now, it's going to be a test against Arizona because they on fire right now. But, their defense could be had. He could do, and that offense too, man. When Trey Lance got in there that second half, put up whatever 20 fantasy points the second half, you could see the potential there. He was 9 of 18, which isn't great, but the fact that he was able to lead them to touchdown driving, no matter if it was a busted coverage on one of the plays, he was still running that ball effectively, and he was still scoring the points. So I took him in some leagues as the QB 3 and 2 quarterback leagues, waiting for this moment now. So now if you drafted him, now's the time to put him in.
Y'all need to go and follow Lawrence at Lord Don't Lose on Instagram, on Twitter, on the podcast. Thank you so much, Lawrence, for joining us. You brighten my day every time I get to talk to you.
I appreciate you. The feeling is mutual. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's check back to Twitter for some more viewer questions at the hashtag AskFFL. This first one comes from Boiler Mark, and he asks, Brandon Cooks versus New England, Odell Beckham at Los Angeles, or AJ Green versus San Francisco half-point PPR. Matt, which of these players, I know that you have additionally been high on AJ Green, telling people to put a pause button on putting him out to pasture, but which of these players, all things considered, are you liking the most?
Jeez, this was one of those moments where I'm like, Liz, don't throw it to me. Don't throw it to me. Pull back the curtain for the viewers. These are randomly assigned to us by Liz. I'm like, don't give me this one. This is too hard. Oh, man, I mentioned it earlier. I definitely feel a little worried about Odell Beckham going into this matchup with the Chargers defense is playing really well. Some of their metrics show it, but I think they're even playing better than some of the stats will show. No explosive plays. This is not happening. And like Brandon Cooks against the Patriots, pass. Everybody out there is like, oh, Brandon Cooks, no matter who he's playing with. Yeah, until you get a situation like Davis Mills going against a great defensive mind, and we've obviously got that this week. Like, man, I kind of think AJ Green is the best play against the 49ers secondary that's banged up. Like, God help me for saying that, but I think, yeah, it's AJ Green in this spot.
Matt, I led you to it, friend. I said it, you spiked it, boom. We are gonna go to Andy for the second one because it's a question from a human named Matt, and Matt to Matt seems a little bit weird. He has a question, this Matt does, about Noah Fant, Jamal Williams, or Sammy Watkins. I believe he can only start one, Andy. So your Penn State, Iowa feelings about yesterday maybe set aside, are you veering off of Fant at all?
I probably would here. I would probably start Jamal Williams here. Love Noah Fant. I think he's a really strong play. I think you definitely, it's impressive to me that you have a tight end who is better than Noah Fant in your actual tight end spot here. Definitely deserves to be rostered. I would still go Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams has been super involved for the Lions. That's a two-person backfield. You're definitely getting double-digit targets there, and it's a beatable matchup against the Vikings. So slightly into Jamal.
Slightly into Jamal and Minty, we are going to lean all the way into your expertise on this next question. It is from Rookie Capper, and this human asks, your thirst trap games have been on fire. Can confirm, no lies detected. What's the trap this week?
Okay, well, excuse me. This week's trap game will be the Carolina Panthers. The line is set really tight, making Carolina 3-point favorites, but I'm going to look to the Eagles to cover the short spread and keep things close. Now, Philly looks rough defensively their past two games, but those were against two very high-powered offenses, the Cowboys and Chiefs. Philly's actually getting stronger offensively, and the Panthers are going to struggle against Jalen Hurts and getting pressure on him. So my bet would be on the Eagles +3.
Minty, always bringing that fire. All right, speaking of bringing fire, the NFC West always does. So let's get to a question. Tank, this one is for you. Within the same division and the same game, in fact, AJ Green versus San Francisco or Brandon Ayuk at Arizona, noting, of course, George Kittle is out. Tank, which of these players would you start?
Hold on, AJ Green versus who?
AJ Green versus San Francisco or Brandon Ayuk at Arizona. So same game, which wide receiver?
I don't know, like for some reason, like I hear AJ Green, but for some reason, like the second name that you keep saying, like it doesn't register in my ears. It's almost like that person doesn't exist. It's almost like Prince, like the artist formerly known as whoever that dude is. So whoever that cat is who burned me in my fantasy lineup last week when I initially had that dude Debo in my lineup, I no longer messes with you. So I'm going with AJ Green, and whoever that cat you said, nah.
That was absolutely masterful, Tank. I appreciate you more and more every time I see you. All right, we've got, speaking of masterful, I don't know, experiences, mirages, we've got a final in London. The Falcons win it. Hooray! 27-20. Michael Carter, he has 58 total yards and a touchdown, so the climb continues. And more interestingly, Kyle Pitts, 9 grabs, 119 yards, and his first career touchdown. What's up? That one is for Lawrence Jackson and me and you too, Tank. We'll be right back.
B, I want the real, B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon. Best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani Unleashed. Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect.
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free, live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
We're back here on Fantasy Football Live. 8 games kicking off at the top of the hour. Here are the key actives and inactives for this morning. Dolphins receiver Devontae Parker will not be in action today with a hamstring injury. Broncos quarterback Teddy Bridgewater has cleared concussion protocol and will make the start today in Pittsburgh. Joe Mixon didn't practice this week, but is active for Cincinnati today. Vikings running back Dalvin Cook is listed as inactive this morning, so he'll miss today's tilt with the Lions. All right, Minty, it is time for you and me to debate your best bets for this week. Ooh, you've been roasting me. What do you have?
All right, so this afternoon we have the Browns and your Chargers, Liz, but I'm going to go with the Browns plus 2.5 here. People are going to be high on the Chargers after their win against the previously undefeated Raiders, but that Cleveland defense is dominant. I mean, they have the second most sacks and the fourth most QB pressures in the league. LA has trouble protecting Herbert at times, and Cleveland is a run-heavy offense, while the Chargers are allowing the third most yards per carry. The Browns are 4-0 against the spread as road dogs, so I got to go with the Browns here.
I love that you called them my Chargers, because I am skipping from team to team like an I don't know what that's appropriate to say. But yes, you are right. Last week, you did incredibly well with best bets, but the only one I got you on was believing that the Chargers could pull it off. To me, this matchup is, and you're spot on here, a matchup between the Browns D-line and the Chargers O-line. Austin and Justin mentioned it in Eckler's Edge. I think they have a game plan, and we will be able to hold the Browns, so I don't think the Browns are able to cover here. What do you have next?
All right, for Sunday Night Football, I love the Bills plus 2.5, and I think they can win straight up too. So I'm on the money line plus 120. Now the Chiefs, explosive offense, yes, but the Bills have a stellar defense and a dynamic offense. Not only is Buffalo better on both sides of the ball, but they've already shut out 2 opponents this season. And yeah, they've faced some softer opponents so far, but this is the opportunity to prove to everyone that they're the real deal and they are serious Super Bowl contenders, and they'll prove it tonight. So Bills or pass for me.
I love how spicy you're getting with this one, and I really like your thought process on this one. I mean, people, I think, will look at last year's numbers, and KC beat the Bills both times they played them, once in the regular and once in the postseason, by at least 9 points. So all of the action is moving to Kansas City's side, but this is not the same Bills squad, or actually, more appropriately, this is not the same Chiefs squad. The Bills are actually number 1 in total DVOA. The Chiefs, on the other hand, number 8. So I agree with you. I don't think I can take the Bills money line. I'm not brave enough to do that, but I absolutely think they cover. Next one for you.
Okay, well, I like that. All right, for Monday Night Football, I like the Colts plus the points over the Ravens. Now, despite the Colts' 1-3 record and poor defense, the Ravens do not deserve to be favorites of essentially a touchdown. They've won 2 games by 2 points or less and beat the Broncos without Bridgewater. So yeah, anyone can do that. The Colts really aren't that bad of a team, and they can take advantage of the fact that Baltimore is not playing their best ball. So I really like the Colts as a big underdog here.
I am 100% going to agree that the Colts will cover, because I am not trying to manifest some boring Monday Night Football game. So yes, for the reasons of the sportsbook and the universe, let's agree with you on this one. There is still time to adjust those lineups, so let's get to our fantasy freebies for this week. Matt, come on, let's do it.
Yeah, let's talk about some guys that are under 25% started in Yahoo leagues, but could bring some extra juice to your lineup. And Andy, I shall allow you to go first with your pick here.
Oh, yeah, give me Emmanuel Sanders in this one. I want plenty of shares of Buffalo's offense. Talked about Zach Moss earlier. I think there's a lot of points and yards to go around here. It's not going to surprise me if they hit, I don't know, 35, 40 points against the Chiefs. Once again, the Chiefs defense allowing 6.9 yards per play so far on the season, over 31 points per game. Sanders, in his last 2, 168 receiving yards. He's seen at least 6 targets in every game so far. He's been among the leaders in air yards on the season. Just a couple of near misses with Josh Allen early in the year. I think he's set up for another potential huge week here. I like him basically every week, and I feel like we need to begin thinking of him as just a rock-solid wide receiver 3 moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. If there's any gap between him and Cole Beasley, like, it is pretty narrow, that gap. So I think he is almost in line as like an every week starter. He should not really be eligible for this segment, but that's on you people out there to start him more. Tank, tell me who is your pick here for a sneaky play in week 5.
Yeah, man, I'm going with my man Joey Burrow, going against the Green Bay Packers. Now, I understand the Green Bay Packers give up the 16 most fantasy points to QB, so that's kind of like middle of the road, but I think people are letting that Jimmy Garoppolo and Ben Roethlisberger experience like kind of manipulate their heads like, Don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe, yo. Jameis Winston, Jared Goff. Never forget. Like, this Green Bay Packers defense is something that we can target, and Jair Alexander is not starting for these guys today. So I feel like Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals trying to prove that they're a team to mess with in the AFC with Aaron Rodgers pushing them on the other side sets up my man Joe Cool for an amazing day. Aubergine dreams.
Yeah, that should be a pretty fun game with a lot of fantasy goodness overall. My pick here is Henry Ruggs of the Las Vegas Raiders, and I'll tell you why. Look, I know everybody is jacked up about Hunter Renfrow right now, and if that hit didn't get you jacked up on Monday night last week, like, do you even like football? That was awesome. But nevertheless, don't lose sight of the fact that Henry Ruggs is averaging 17.8 air yards per target. That leads not just the team. I'm pretty sure that leads all relevant wide receivers right now. So you know he can get those explosive plays. And by the way, the Bears allow those explosive plays. They rank 23rd in explosive play rate allowed. And I know that a lot of that damage has been done by slot receivers, which again might lead you back to Hunter Renfrow. I don't hate that logic at all. But Henry Ruggs takes 45% of his snaps in the slot as well, so he could rip that Colts defense down, or rip that Bears defense down the middle of the field. I don't mind him as a dart throw this week one bit. What I also don't mind is hearing from you people, the people, my people, about what's on your mind. We talked some buy lows, the Fantasy Football Survival Kit. Let's run the tape here. We asked you people, the people, my people, who is the player that you are most looking to buy low in a trade right now? Let's get right into it because you had some fantastic responses here, sort of. And on that note, first one is DeAndre Hopkins. And look, DeAndre Hopkins is absolutely verifiably, without question, one of the 5 best receivers in real-life football. But this isn't real-life football. This is fake football. And it's time to accept that things are different in the Cardinals' offense than what we expected. Yes, Kyler Murray is playing the best pro ball of his entire career, but DeAndre Hopkins has like a 19% target share in this offense. That was like 29% last year. Say what you want about A.J. Green and the fact that you thought he was dusted last year. He's playing well for the Cardinals. Christian Kirk is coming on as a slot receiver. We know Rondale Moore's a playmaker. The targets aren't just going to get funneled to DeAndre Hopkins. So yeah, he can maybe be a good high-end 2 or low-end 1, but you got to let go of what he's been in the past and live in the current reality. So yeah, maybe a little trade offer, but don't get too crazy. Next up, we've got Damien Harris, and perfect buy low suggestion. If somebody out there is sitting there looking at Damien Harris's box score from last week and just like, oh man, and they're panicking, yeah, absolutely. Go send them a trade offer because the schedule coming up for the Patriots is pretty good. I like the way the offense is just kind of slowly moving the ball down the field. So I think Damien Harris could be like a top 20 running back the rest of the way. I think he's a great buy low trade offer, maybe someone that you just kind of throw into a bigger deal as a little extra spice. What I don't love is this part of the segment because I have to be a little critical. And usually I'm a bright, sunny, optimistic guy who doesn't like to be too critical. But nevertheless, the worst tweet that we got in response this week was Christian McCaffrey. And listen, I'm not sitting here saying that trading for Christian McCaffrey would be a bad idea or anything like that. It's just the idea, like, who the hell is trading you Christian McCaffrey in a buy low situation? Like, if CMC is on my team, you better not come at me with anything less than Derrick Henry. If you do, you can just get the hell out of here. I mean, is there really somebody out there that has Christian McCaffrey and sitting there thinking, oh, he's injured all the time, and he's been injured right now, and they haven't just read the reports that, like, actually, it's not as bad as we first thought? Like, it's all about being realistic here. And on that note, that's where we're going to end things here. Whether it's the Cardinals offense or the Cowboys offense, sometimes things don't go to our preseason expectations. Sometimes we misevaluate these football teams, and that's okay because the constant change of the NFL is what makes it fun. So on that note, moving forward, we're going to get some wins by doing a few things. We're going to be realistic, we're going to be humble, we're going to let go of our priors, and damn it, we're going to have some fun.
All right, it's Make Your Pick time, and I'm joined, you heard him, I'm joined by the bright, sunshiny, optimistic Matt Harmon. For this one, we're going to take a couple of your social questions. And let's start with Taco Tuesday. Taco Tuesday, that sounds delicious. Says, tough one here. Pick 2, Kadarius Toney, Darnell Mooney, Kenneth Gainwell, and Jamal Williams. Matt, which way are you leaning here?
Yeah, I don't mind Kadarius Toney, but I'm not really in a position yet where I'm ready to trust him as a fantasy starter. I am ready to trust Darnell Mooney as an explosive guy. We saw the connection between him and Justin Fields. Really liked that. You mentioned that Justin Fields is really letting that ball go downfield, which is a welcome development. So I like him. And if we're picking two options, I am going to go with Jamal Williams for the second one. Bit of a safer floor play to balance out the volatility of a deep threat in the Bears offense.
Yeah, I'm actually going to agree with you on this one. I think Mooney's a pretty clear play here as an upside option for you. And as you say, Jamal Williams just getting double-digit targets per week, and it's a friendly matchup too. I do want to add, like, I think you're kind of bullish on Toney. I don't know how they don't get that guy, I don't know, a half dozen targets per week moving forward. He was electric last week. That was really fun to watch.
It's enough of the Darius Slayton thing. Enough with Darius Slayton. That'll be. We're good. We're good with the Darius Slayton thing. Figure it out.
The early season drop was all I needed to see. This one's for me. Expat Nat says, "Dear Andy Behrens, hope this tweet finds you well. Thank you. Thank you for your concern. Please pick 3.5 PPR. It's Devontae Smith, it's Jalen Waddle, Allen Robinson, Jacoby Myers, and out of respect for Tank, I am not going to say this last name. I think I'm going to go, I got to go Allen Robinson here. I talked about him earlier. I just think he's such an obvious buy low right now, and he's paired now with a quarterback who's really, like, he's going downfield all the time. We love that. I'm going to go Jalen Waddle in this one. I love Waddle's setup this week. No Devontae Parker in this one. I just think he's a burner. They're going to throw the ball all over the yard. And if I'm starting 3, I got to go Devontae Smith. That's my guy. Do you agree?
Well, my therapist says I can't talk about Brandon Ayuk anymore, so I should probably avoid saying the name. At least for now, I'm trying not to lose my stuff over this whole thing. But anyways, let's stay focused here on our question. I am going to agree with 2 of your picks here. Going to go with Jalen Waddle. Going to go with Allen Robinson. I like that, but I am saying that this. Look, if we say it every week, like this is the week that Jacoby Myers gets his first receiving touchdown, at some point we're going to be right. Like, the guy is number 3 in routes run in the NFL. He's top 10 in targets and catches. I really like him as a play against a Houston defense that's actually okay at defending the run, but really bad at defending the pass. I think the Patriots use a similar game plan of what we saw last week against this defense. I think Jacoby Myers is as rock solid as a wide receiver 3 as you can get right now.
Just for the record, we don't say it every week. You say it every week. And hey,
at some point I'm going to be right.
No doubt going to be right. All right, let's send it to Liz for one last fantasy face-off.
All right, Tank, it is you and me this week, and we're talking about a pair of quarterbacks. You know what? I'm going to let you go first. You tell me why Daniel Jones, how dare you say he's given Eli face. What an insult to King Hot Daddy. I think we call him Zaddy these days, versus Trey Lance in his first start.
So I already told you the reason why you should play Daniel Jones. Like, Cowboys give up the 6th most fantasy points to QBs, and that he has 3 20-point outings. Like, I'm telling you why you shouldn't play Lance, because Lizzie is in her feelings. Like, we already know that she's emotionally attached to Eli Manning. I think he has a hall pass in the family, and so she's always had it out for DJ since he's taken over the starting quarterback role. And now, I agree. Like, I used to give DJ all kind of flack like prior years, but now he's actually balling. Like, he's actually like a top 10 fantasy quarterback. On the other hand, we have Trey Lance, who has no George Kittle, who goes to the 2nd best tight end university in the nation. And also he has, besides Deebo Samuel, some guy who doesn't even have his name anymore to throw to. And so you're going to put that rookie quarterback against a defense that already shut down Ryan Tannehill and already shut down my man Stafford in the offense that they thought was the best one in the NFC after going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you really expect this rookie to outplay DJ? Oh, please do tell, Lizzie. Make that logical.
I do, because who do I trust more? Kyle Shanahan in a divisional matchup with a quarterback that he drafted 3rd overall, that kind of capital, or Jason Garrett in a revenge game where he can Jedi mind trick his own self? No, thank you. Give me Trey Lance. I know that Arizona has been solid against the pass, but they have allowed the 7th most rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks, 100 even, in fact. And what do we know about Trey Lance? He's got those wheels, and I agree that Kittle being out is not ideal, but maybe this is the moment that takes the field and actually follows through in the end zone. So I do like Lance because of the mobility he is offering to be a top 12, 14 play this week for fantasy.
You see me giving you the Eli face?
I love your face. I know. I saw it. I looked in the monitor. I saw the face. And you know what? I think we got to go out on this. It's time for our final break here on Fantasy Football Live because I need to compose myself. When we come back, more of your roster questions. You know what? Are you tired of finishing in the middle of the pack? Well, you can start winning with Yahoo Fantasy Plus and get the edge you need to dominate your league. Get access to exclusive tools like a research assistant, trade hub, expert rankings, and more. Start your free 7-day trial today. Head to yahoofantasyfootball.com/plus. We'll be right back.
B, I want the real B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon. The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani Unleashed. Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect!
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
We are just moments away from kickoff, so let's get to as many social media questions as we can, and let's start with this one from Poppy of 2, who asks, OBJ or Marvin Jones Jr.? Tank, I know that you're high on Marvin Jones. You talked about him earlier in the show. Are you liking him over OBJ in this situation?
Man, the way Baker missed OBJ streaking down the field to in that game against the Vikings last week, like, no way I'm touching that, especially when Marvin Jones has a delicious matchup. I mean, magically delicious against that Titans defense, giving up the #1 fantasy points to fantasy wide receivers. So, yeah, give me that man, Marv.
All right, let's get to another one here. It is from Lunar Tick. Yes, new moon in Libra, if that's what you're referring to. Half-point PPR question. It's a flex question. Antonio Gibson dealing with some shin issues, or A.J. Brown? Still figure it's Brown coming off an injury. Andy, what say you?
Yeah, I'm gonna lean A.J. Brown here, especially because the PPR aspect to it. Matt talked about it earlier. I mean, this is a blow-up spot for A.J. Brown. It's a friendly matchup. No Julio Jones on the field. There's no way he doesn't see 9-10 targets in this one, and that almost always ends with at least one spike for Brown.
All right, let's get to a next one here. It is from Gator Dude in North Carolina. I know you bet on the Cardinals all the time. Is Arizona giving 5.5 one of your best bets this week? Minty, what advice are you giving to this Gator enthusiast in the South?
Arizona is on fire, but it is time for a little regression, and 5.5 points seems like a lot to be favored by. It's a tricky number too, and I always say it, Cardinals are great as underdogs. They're 7-3-1 against the spread as underdogs, but only 3-5 against the spread as favorites. I like San Francisco in this game.
Matt, we're going to close it out with you. It's a question from Orion, half-point PPR, Cortland Sutton, Henry Ruggs, who you talked up earlier, or Latavius Murray, also a player you talked up earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm actually going to go with Henry Ruggs here. Why not stand by my words, 1 minute till kickoff here at this point? Yeah, go with Henry Ruggs. Look, Cortland Sutton banged up, coming off an injury. He's going against the Steelers defense that obviously, like, half those guys got bad groins or whatever. I don't know what's going on with the Steelers, but I mean, I still think that it's still a respectable defense. That could give Teddy Bridgewater some trouble, who obviously missed most of last week's game. And Latavius Murray, it's like, yeah, sure, whatever. I mean, he's boring, incredibly like snooze fest. But I'm going to go with the exciting Henry Ruggs potential. I really like him as a blow-up player this week.
And let's definitely end the show on an exciting note. I love that because that's going to do it for this edition of Fantasy Football Live. It's good to get the name of the show out when you're closing it. Thanks for kicking off your Sunday with us. Remember, you can catch us all week long on our podcast, the Yahoo Fantasy Football Forecast, our daily show, Mad Bets, here on Yahoo Sports, and of course, back here on Fantasy Football Live every Sunday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific. Good luck to all your fantasy teams in Week 5, and we'll see you for Week 6.